There were some small upgrades here and there, maybe better accuracy, better battery life, more durability, things like that, which are great.
Sure.
But we're talking about like
Incremental.
you want features, right? Yeah,
Right.
incremental, and you really want that like this is a new feature. So that's what Gen 8 was. And what that really did, man, is they introduced the touch screens, the phasers have screens on them, the chest plates had screens on them,
Hmm.
and they were dynamic. So they were, you could have animation, you could have, all sorts of different colors and things like that. So it became this really customizable experience. So instead of like red versus green or whatever, right? It was like
Awesome. So thanks so much for coming on today, Chris. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. For people who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, give us a little introduction about yourself and the company you work with.
sure. So I'm Chris Epstein with Laser Force International, avid laser tag player. Started playing laser tag in 1998, man. It was, I fell in love instantly. Became kind of the dream job to work there in high school. So that's what I did. First job right out the gate. So working at a laser tag arena and did that. And fast forward, man, 20 something odd years later, and here I am working for Laser Force International. So
Mhm.
it's a dream come true, man. I get to wake up and be in the laser tag and entertainment industry every day. So I
Yeah,
love it.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's like, maybe when you're younger, they asked you what you want to be when you grow up, and you said, I want to do laser tag. You're the one who
Yeah.
actually did it.
Yeah, exactly. It's wild to think, but it's just one of those things where you have a passion, you follow your passion, and
Yeah.
now I'm here. So
Yeah. So how did you get into it initially? Just working for Laser Force, or give me a little bit of
yeah.
background on that?
So I don't know, Forrest, did you play a little laser tag growing up, man? Or
Of course. Yeah, of
of
course.
course, right. So
Yeah.
it was the thing to do, man. You know how it is. Like,
Right.
you're that age, you're growing up, like, let's go play laser tag with your buddies and birthday parties. So that was kind of my initial exposure. Now I live, down here in Houston, and we have a lot of different laser tag places, especially in the early 2000s, late 90s,
Yeah.
man. It was popping. I'm sure you remember.
Mhm.
So I got to go around and play at a lot of the different locations. And I fell in love with one. I'll give them a shout out. It's called Laser Zone. It's still open, they're still operating, and they had Laser Force. So that's when I initially kind of, fell in love with the system and playing it. And it was just like a natural progression, man. It was like, all right, I love the system. Like, let me work here. And then once you start working there, you learn kind of the ins and out of the software, the hardware, things like that. So
Mhm.
that was kind of my progression. And from there, I actually worked kind of through my high school years and into college and things like that. And full circle, I kept in touch with a lot of the same people from Laser Force throughout the years, and that's why I'm here today.
Awesome. I love it. So you said you're international. You have centers all across the country that carry your
Oh yeah.
equipment. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're one of the oldest too. 87. Our founder Lynn Kelly, he was, he's from. We're based out of Australia, so he was over there, and he was like, I can just do better. I can make better equipment. This
Mhm.
can be better, and he did. And fast forward, man, 8 generations of equipment later, and we're here
Mhm.
today. And yeah, so it's international. It's all over the globe, based out of Australia. We have sites in Europe, in North America, and of course, Australia, and so just we're kind of spread out all over the globe. So, you can go play Laser Force pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. So now, are most people on like the latest one, or how far back are people usually, like, how many generations back do people run?
All right, man. Well, good question. So let me ask you this, man. What generation is your cell phone? Where are you at? What do you got in your
I
pocket right
got
now?
the S22 because I broke my other one. So I think I'm a year behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's similar to laser tag. As long as I'm guessing your phone was working fine. Like, you just kind of upgraded whenever you felt like it, but it wasn't out of
Mhm.
necessity of like. So laser tag equipment is very. These things will run. Laser Force will run forever. So we actually have
Yeah.
people for us on generation 6, which was 2 generations ago. We're at generation 8 now. We
Yeah.
call it Gen 8. And so we have people still running this equipment, and a lot of people still running Gen 7. And then I would say, people have switched. We probably have the majority getting onto the Gen 8 train.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's this incredible problem to have, where it's like your old equipment, so cell phone, it's just like, it
Yeah.
just works fine every day, right? So
Right.
why kind of switch out? So it's a
Yeah.
good problem to have, in the sense of, the equipment's working well and everything's functioning. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting kind of situation to be in as the manufacturer as well. Is like, well, it's great news, everything's still working, but we have
Right.
all these new features we really love, and we want everybody to
Yeah.
experience with the new system. So
Right. Yeah, that makes sense then. I guess you guys don't do what I always suspected the phone companies do is they make the phones only last 2 years, so you get a new one.
no, yeah, you don't want to be bundled up with that, right? Like you
Right.
put into that category, like, yeah, it'll break in 3 years. No,
Yeah.
so like I
Right.
said, good problem to have.
Yeah. So I mean, what are some of the features then of the Gen 8 versus like a 6 or 7, or like what's like the latest and
Yeah.
greatest right now?
Man, so honestly, like Gen 8 was really kind of like the game, every once in a while, like technologies, like it's yeah, this is great, new features, better processor, better memory, whatever,
Yeah.
XYZ when you're coming to technology, right? But when every once in a while there's like a breakout system or breakout generation, and that was kind of Gen 8, Generation 8,
Mm.
for a while, man, and just in the industry in general, it got kind of, there was some small upgrades here and there, maybe better accuracy, better battery life, more durability, things like that, which are great.
Sure.
But we're talking about like
Incremental.
you want features, right? Yeah,
Right.
incremental, and you really want that like this is a new feature. So that's what Gen 8 was. And what that really did, man, is they introduced the touch screens, the phasers have screens on them, the chest plates had screens on them,
Hmm.
and they were dynamic. So they were, you could have animation, you could have, all sorts of different colors and things like that. So it became this really customizable experience. So instead of like red versus green or whatever, right? It was like, hey, any color you want and any kind of customization you want. And from there, it's really taken off, and there's all sorts of customizations and features. Obviously, like I said, incrementally things always get better year to year, generation to generation, as far as durability, battery life, things like that. So
Mhm.
those things will always improve, like on the logistic side of reliability, but the feature side really took off with Generation 8.
Yeah, that's cool. So almost like a platform where you can kind of build stuff on top of it with the
It,
colors
yeah,
and yeah.
it's incredible too, because we release a Laser Force, we come out kind of with a patch every year or an update, and it's free to everybody that's enrolled in our program, our support program, and we're constantly putting things in that the hardware can handle, and we're just putting in features kind of retroactively, right? Almost like a video
Yeah.
game or things like that. Like it's there, it can exist. We just needed to like perfect it and put it in and make it function at the level we wanted before we released it. So it's pretty cool, man.
Right.
Every year, it's like Christmas. Like here comes this great patch with all these new features, and
Yeah.
so it's pretty fun.
Upgrade. Yeah, I guess so. Kind of like with Tesla, you can kind of download the newest version
Yeah,
onto the platform. That's nice because then you can iterate
exactly.
a lot faster.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And like I said, we try to do it once a year and just kind of have like things rolling out constantly, so you can have an older generation and still kind of take advantage of some of the new stuff. So
Right. Whatever carries over.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's really cool. So then like, are there different types of games that you can play now with this new version, or is it mainly colors, or like what's like some of the cool stuff people
Yeah.
are doing today?
Yeah, man. I mean, so I know we kind of talked a little bit earlier. You said you used to be a gamer, so you're probably
Mhm.
familiar with some of the big fun games that people like to play now.
Mhm.
They're the more role playing type of games, right? Like you
Yeah.
take on a role, you work on it as a team, things like that. So we have everything under the sun. Our number one game, at least historically, is a game called Space Marines 5, and it is a role playing game. And it is a game where you have a limited number of ammunition, a limited number of lives. Like you can be eliminated from the
Yeah.
game, you can actually run out of ammunition. So the object of the game is you take on a role, you play on a team, and it's very strategic. So you kind of combine some strategic team play element, and then
like chess kind of thing.
like exactly like chess. There's 5
Okay.
positions, and you kind of specialize in one, and similar to maybe basketball, like you want the best point guard on your team,
right?
Things like that, right?
That's
So
cool.
it's a very min-max situation, and that actually, that Force, that's played international. We have an international tournament every
I
year.
can see. Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. It's a blast. And then
cool.
on the simpler side, so that's a little more complicated. Obviously, you got to explain the dynamics of the game. There's a lot of so we also like to kind of give the option to our operators and say, hey, like here's a game you could roll out to anybody, birthday parties, walk-ins, whoever. I mean, that's called laser ball, and it's kind of like a soccer basketball blended with laser tag. You have a ball carrier, there's one ball in play, and the goal is to kind of score on the other person's goal, right? And you can pass it to your teammates, and if the enemy team zaps you, you have the ball, they take it. And then what's really cool is when somebody scores, it's kind of like soccer, where the game kind of pauses, you go back to your side of the field,
Yeah.
and it resets like new round, right? You try to score a
Yeah.
certain amount of points.
Right.
So it's real fast paced game, man. It's a lot of fun. So that's kind of the newer, easier. So we have both sides, easy and more complicated.
That's really cool. So yeah, like just an evolving game to where it's kind of new stuff rather than just the, one team versus the other team.
Yeah, and really what that does for proprietors and operators is that's replayability, right? Like that's that metric, right? It's like play laser, but you can also play this game called Laser Ball, and it's totally different experience. It's going to be, so you can kind of sell that as just another game to play. And then the Space Marines 5 is, good for like members nights, league nights. You can kind of run that on a weekday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where foot traffic maybe is a little bit slower, right? Not a lot of birthdays. So for operators, that's really great stuff for them for replayability, bringing people in, slower nights of the week, or kind of getting them to buy more than one game of laser tag,
Yeah. Yeah. And actually that's you mentioned leagues. So I was curious, is that because I come from the bowling side, obviously. Do you see much of that happening? Because it seems like it'd be a huge opportunity, but I haven't heard of people doing it much. Do people do that often?
Yeah, so it's pretty big. Every system, every different company kind of, brand has their different competitive scenes. But one thing prominent throughout the industry is definitely that competitive league night tournaments. As I mentioned earlier, we have an international tournament every year that's hosted. And that's a blast. So you have players from all over the world competing, but not everybody wants to travel internationally to play laser tag, and that's fine. So there's local tournaments, there's national tournaments, there'll be like an East Coast tournament, a West Coast tournament. There's a huge tournament that takes on multi-systems called Armageddon. That one's a classic. So there's definitely that competitive scene. And, so if you want to be really competitive with laser tag, you can, or you can just go in and play socially with your buddies. Right. So similar to bowling, right? Like you can be competitive if you want, but like it can just be for fun too. So it's great, right? It's for everybody.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, it's pretty accessible, like bowling.
Yes, very accessible. It's a wide net, right? Very wide net of people can enjoy it.
Right. And I mean, I bet laser tag's similar to like esports, where people don't realize how big it really is. Like it's kind of niche, but like there's some massive money to be made, like competitions. Like it's actually pretty big. Is laser tag similar?
It's I would say it's on a similar trajectory as far as esports with it's in its infancy, right? There's no professional laser tag players yet that we haven't crossed that hurdle. So that's something where, you still got to keep your day job, unfortunately, but like that's kind of the dream goal is to get to that point. So I think we will see it. I think I think it's relatable to a lot of people play laser tag. So we're not there yet, but I do see that becoming a thing in the future.
Yeah. You need like a league, like the NFL or, the MLB, you need a laser tag league.
Yeah. And one of the things, so and kind of like you mentioned earlier, I mean, with esports, the technology kind of had to catch up where spectators could enjoy it, right? These platforms had to be built like Twitch and things like that. So I think that's kind of going to be the next step is like what platform, what technology could laser tag use where spectators could really enjoy a game of laser tag.
Yeah. So like, do people stream it right now? Because I think some of them will put like a screen outside of the thing you can watch while other people are playing. Do you guys do that?
Yeah. So that's one of the cool features is you can look in, they have like live looks into the arena. Right. And then of course, like we have our score screen, which is kind of like a recap, like it's like a live box score, which is pretty cool. So you can kind of see in real time, this player is zapping this player, or what's going on, that who's in first place, second place. And then a lot of arenas have like kind of the live look in, so you can kind of watch different parts of the arena and the action going on. And on top of that, one thing we've seen some of the things that's been evolving is people are starting to put like maybe attach a GoPro, so you can kind of see that first person, kind of we're talking about esports, that first person perspective of laser tag, I think, which is incredible. You're moving around the arena and people are popping out behind corners and things like that. So I think ultimately that's when it's going to kind of carry us towards the competitive.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Because I mean, it's the same thing with esports, where at first you're like, wait, you're watching other people play video games, and people are like, what the heck? And then you realize like how into it people get, and like how almost addictive it is, where it's like some people prefer to watch others play than to play themselves. You guys are probably in a similar position.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're gonna watch the Super Bowl, right? I mean, and we watch sports all the time, and I agree with you. Esports, it sounded crazy, especially because the accessibility with video games. But laser tag, I think, is the same way sometimes. And I think sometimes you like to learn by watching really good play, like, and you can appreciate the kind of craftsmanship and skill of some of these like high level players. And you can kind of take that back to what you're doing and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree with you 100%. I think it's definitely something that it kind of maybe sound 10 years ago, we'd have been like, no way, but now it sounds pretty reasonable.
Right. Yeah. There's further stretches out there than something like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to take it back a little bit towards bowling. Tell me a little bit about some of the centers that you're seeing today who are really successful, and maybe some of the things that they're implementing or putting into play that, from a business standpoint, seem to work really well for them.
Sure. So I think a lot of centers are kind of moving maybe towards the more family entertainment center model. And, I know it's a big trend right now, and there's a lot of people are having a lot of success with that. So I think one of the first things, if you're kind of talking about how do we make that move and what attractions are we adding, you're obviously looking at footprint, floor space. How do you maximize that, right? Especially if we're talking about taking out lanes for us, right? Like if you're removing lanes, you're removing revenue opportunity.
Sure.
And when you're doing that, you're like, I better replace this with something that's making more revenue, right, in this footprint, right? So a lot of the proprietors that have a lot of success, is the first thing I would always say is make sure you have, especially if you're removing lanes, is don't take out too many lanes, but also don't take out too few, right? Like there's that Goldilocks, like there's a sweet spot, right?
And 6 to 10.
It's actually less than that. So I would say you're looking at about 4 to 6.
Okay. Yeah.
Now you can go bigger if you want to do that 6 to 10 range. That's absolutely fine.
Well, now
it depends.
A lot of places do 2 floors, right?
Right. And that's the other part of it is one great thing about laser tag is you can scale vertically. You can build up as long as your building permits it. And that saves a ton of floor space for you. So you can, kind of build up, get that extra square footage in there. And if you're able to do that, you might be able to take out 4 lanes and get a 2-story arena in there and, have a great time. So that's key, right? Identifying how much revenue you're going to lose from those 4 to 6 lanes or 8 lanes or however you're taking out. And then making sure that laser tag would kind of fill that void and more than fill it, right? Amplify it. So that's kind of the first step. And then once you kind of have, all right, this is my plan, I'm going to take out 4 lanes. Then you need to kind of think about your demographics, your foot traffic, things like that, right? Obviously laser tag's very popular with the younger generation, younger adults, things like that. But one good thing for us is like, you and I, we've grown up, we played laser tag growing up. We still enjoy laser tag, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So the younger adults are still playing and we're still going out there and enjoying laser tag. So demographics are shifting in a positive way, which is always great. So I think looking at that as a proprietor and saying, hey, I can capture younger, older, everybody under the sun, like we spoke about earlier. I take out 4 lanes. I think that's kind of a lot of people are having success with that formula, 4 to 6 lanes. And as long as you kind of have younger demographics in your area, your market area, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, now, that calculation, is this something that you guys help with? You get third-party assessments, or how do you calculate like the revenue lost, and then maybe not all of it lost because some of it might just go to other lanes? Like, how do you guys usually walk through that equation?
Yeah, so the way we look at it is we look at player games per week, right? So how many games of laser tag are played per week? And that's kind of how we help you as a proprietor project your laser tag. And, depending on what part of the country you're in, the length of games, that's going to vary your price per game. Do you run a lot of promotions, XYZ? Safe bet usually is probably about $8 a game. So you kind of look at your throughput right now and you say, we're at capacity and at this time and that time. So you would reasonably presume you'd be close to capacity at your laser tag attraction during these hours, right?
Yeah.
That's how we would help you project kind of that laser tag revenue. And then as far as revenue lost, I think proprietors probably have a way better understanding for their center, right? Because like you said, sometimes it's not just the lane revenue, it's the shoe rental, it's the food and beverage, right? And some of that can be recapped, right? Food and beverage might be recapped. Like you can, maybe make that up. So as far as kind of projecting that, we can have those conversations and really help project that revenue for the proprietors.
I'm sure it's a pretty in-depth conversation, but at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to for them, right? The profit per square foot.
Absolutely. And And the other great thing about laser tag, and there's in our business, we have the anchor attractions, which people will come to your site for
Right.
specifically and have a birthday party there for, or Google you, like let's, driving that traffic. And then there's kind of
Yeah.
the secondary. Laser tag is definitely a primary anchor attraction. People
Mhm.
will come there specifically to play laser tag. So
Right.
that's the other thing I say is you will have people coming to your facility that would have never come just for bowling. Right.
Right.
And then, they're coming to play laser tag and then they're playing in your arcades. So
Right.
you're also, kind of getting a different target customer as well. So it's, kind of a multifaceted, approach to how much we're going to project you to make on that revenue.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's always what I've tried to promote is that kind of concentric circles, or the diagram of circles, overlapping circles, where you have every product is an overlapping circle. And the more of them you have, you can get them to cross over to some of the other product lines. You have more
Absolutely
lines in the ocean, so to speak.
Absolutely. And what we were talking about earlier, it comes back to that FEC kind of pivoting a little bit towards that. It really just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, kind of self-reinforcing. So the last question I had on kind of this topic is there a different kind of cap for laser tag for the throughput versus bowling? Because especially this time of year, a lot of proprietors do get kind of capped out. There's only so many lanes they can do. If they have leagues, then they definitely don't have any lanes for open play. How does the cap or the throughput of laser tag compare to bowling lanes? Because it's less people, it's a lot less people and a lot more space and a lot more time.
Right. So that's a great question. And that's always important because we're talking about maximizing it, right? So that goes back to our original kind of, I said, first step where we're talking about how much space do you want to allocate? And we said 4 to 6 lanes if you're going to remove, but I'll go ahead and put in square footage. So ideally you want to be between about 3,000 and 5,000 square feet for your arena. And you need to set it a little bit aside for to store your vests and your battle suits and things like that.
Right.
Now, so that's from there, you want to look at how many vests you actually have because we're talking about throughput. There's a maximum, right? You can only have, if you have 30 vests, you can only maximum have 30 people in that game. And if you're running a 10-minute game, theoretically, you could probably run 5 10-minute games if you're running maximum efficiency in 1 hour. Probably 4, just be realistic, say 4.5. So that's where you're going to kind of look at your cap, right? So if we're running 4.5 games an hour, and even if we're selling every single ticket we have, that's 30 times 4.5, right? So that's kind of what you'd be looking at in terms of the maximum cap.
Is there a cap I'm sure there's a cap for how many people you can fit into that arena too, right?
Right. So industry standards usually about 125 square feet per player. So your arena size.
Yeah.
So that's give or take around there is kind of what you're looking at. So obviously some of that can be offset with ramps and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's a good rule of thumb, good metric for you.
Yeah. Okay. So you can get a lot more people in that square footage. It's just probably not at full capacity as often.
Yeah, I mean, it works similar to a lot of these other bowling. There's going to be your peak hours weekend where it's you're running max capacity, but it's not 24/7. Unfortunately, I mean,
but if you took a max capacity and compared both of the max capacity, the laser tag is going to have more than the bowling as far as the throughput.
It is obviously
4 lanes for if you just did it per game times 4 to 6 lanes is 6 people on a lane. It's because you'd have a lot more turnover for the games.
And I think some of that comes down to the business model. If you're a proprietor at a bowling center and you're running per lane rental, or you're running per time, or you're running per guest, right? They have the different. So that pricing, right? The different structures. Some proprietors, they're we're just running, especially during peak hours. They're it's going to be by the lane, right? Or by the hour, whatever. Because sometimes they don't want to do by the game because the game lasts a really long time. Or,
and
so
they don't know what it's going to be.
Right. So sometimes I think during peak hours, one of the trends I've been seeing a lot lately is time. To just make sure they're maximizing those peak hours. So, and laser tag's kind of similar to that is it's definitely a time interval. The game is 10 minutes. So you can calculate you can forecast pretty well.
Right. Yeah. No, it's cool. I just like doing the kind of the exercises of seeing what those different business models looks like.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me too. It's really interesting because especially when you're talking about if you're going to replace lanes, you really got to know how much are you making per lane per hour on a peak versus how much are you making in, laser tag per square foot during peak. So, and that's, that's something whoever proprietors partner with will definitely help you out with that kind of forecasting.
Yeah. Now, are you seeing more of that situation where they're taking out a few lanes and put in an arena, or like new builds, or what's trending right now?
I think replacing is usually actually, I mean, I see both. If you have the space, like some people have space that they can just put in an arena, that's probably optimal. Like, right.
Sure.
And then some people actually have adjacent land where they're building a new building, like right next door.
Yeah.
And then some people are able to take out the lanes and replace that with laser tag. So that's it. All of them work. And what's great is a lot of the synergy of running laser tag and bowling are going to be pretty similar, right? Like you already have kind of the lobby, you already kind of have restrooms, you have a lot of infrastructure in place. So you're not starting from ground zero, no matter what option you go. So you're in pretty good shape. And I think that definitely helps that barrier to entry it becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we're coming close to the top of the hour. I want to respect your time, but tell me a little bit about where you see things going for the next, 1 year to 18 months or so when it comes to laser tag.
Yeah. So one of the really fun, really cool things that's happening, and we kind of talked about earlier, is there's features that we can kind of retroactively go through and bring to life, right, in the equipment that exists.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier, kind of about the circles and the Venn diagram, and like you want all these attractions and people to enjoy multi, parts of the business, right?
Right.
You want your customers to have fun in the arcade, but enjoy a great pizza and X, Y, and Z. So one of the cool things about laser tag right now, and we're trying to kind of integrate with a lot of these other aspects of the business, right? So we want laser tag to be a part of redemption, for example, is the big one, right? So redemption's a great tool and a lot of businesses use it. So one of the biggest features that we've come out with recently has been adding redemption, or at least making it, gamifying it, and making it very immersive experience, kind of perfecting that redemption experience into laser tag. So you can actually go play laser tag, and just like you would swipe a game card on you can swipe it, go play laser tag, and get redemption points or tickets to go spend, right?
Yeah.
So just, it's one of those things where it adds value to the total business, not just the laser tag part of your business, right? So I think that's the big thing with laser tag, is how do we play nice with a whole bunch of other attractions and really kind of understand that the standalone laser tag days are over.
Sure.
And it's the FEC, right? Like, let's be a part of the bigger picture, and let's help operators earn more throughout their entire business, not just their laser tag portion, right? So that's moving forward, I think, the focus, and what we're definitely focused on here at Laser Force is providing that to our customers and our operators.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you're saying, like, how do you fit into the FEC model more effectively?
Right.
And how do you make it easier for them to go from one of these other attractions to your attraction?
Exactly. Right. Like what makes sense, So I think that's the thing, right? If you got redemption points and you want to go get a redemption prize, and someone's playing on the arcade is full, we're just going to leave. Instead, it's like, oh, I'll just go play laser. I'll go play some laser tag, right? Like, so it's things like that, I think, are definitely going to be the future, and, just helping customers have fun with it. And it's also great for the operators.
Yeah, I love that. So anything that you would say to someone who's thinking about, looking at laser tag, or, that's on their mind, or they're, hey, at least thinking about dipping their toe in, what would you say to them?
Call me. No. Yeah. So I would say it's definitely history's on your side, first and foremost. This is not this isn't new. This isn't trendy right now, right? Like this is proven. And I think anytime you have a business that's time proven and it's stood the test, I think you are going to be safe. So I think that's the biggest thing, is like history's on your side. You're not really taking a huge leap of faith in like a new technology, or a new attraction where it's like, that could be great, and this could be the next thing. The risk is lower, right? So I would say it's definitely going to be an attraction where you can kind of feel good about adding, right? And we were talking earlier with forecasting, it's relatively safe to forecast too. Like I said, you can kind of really drill it down to how many people are coming through your doors, how much you would charge in your market, how fast you're going to run those games. So you can really hone in, and then we can kind of, go from there. So I would say very safe in terms of being able to project, and very battle tested. So I always advocate laser tag is a great anchor attraction. I think it pairs perfectly with bowling. A lot of people, we go to these shows and these conferences all the time, and we talk to people, and you probably hear the same thing: is how do we capture revenue when we're at capacity? Like, what do we do? Like, we can't turn customers away, right?
Yeah.
When they're coming in and you're like, hey, we're booked. It's Saturday night. So that's the biggest thing where I think laser tag can really help out bowling centers, and you could be very successful, and you're adding laser tag, and it's like you're no longer turning customers away. You're giving them deals on laser tag, right? A discount on laser tag or something like that. Hey, like, we're sorry we're full, but half price laser tag until we can get something open for you. Who's going to say no to that, right? So I think that's really helping. I would say laser tag can really help capture that revenue when you're at capacity, and that's something where you could just easily add it, and like I said, it's there and it's going to make money for you.
Right. Yeah. There's some principle, I forget the name of it, but it's like, if it's been around for 30 or 40 years, it's probably likely to be around for another 30, 40 years kind of thing.
Yeah. Logic.
Yeah, right. I love it. Cool, Chris. Well, yeah, this has been fun. I could talk about this stuff all day, but I want to be respectful of your time. You said have them give you a call if they're interested in laser tag. Where can people go if they want to reach out to you or learn more about Laser Force?
Sure. So, our website, laserforcetag.com, and you can feel free to email me, chris.e@laserforcetag.com.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate it. This has been fun. I want to do it again sometime.
Thanks, Forrest, man. I appreciate it. And you look great. You sound awesome, man. And thanks for what you're doing.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks.
Take care.